Emergency, what's the station emergency?
I'm on the crisis.
I work dispatch for a county line most people have never heard of, and most nights are exactly as boring as you'd expect. This one wasn't. The call came in at 2:47 in the morning. A woman's voice, quiet, trying not to sound scared, and failing at it. She said there was a man in her front yard walking in slow circles around the same patch of grass, over and over. I've taken hundreds of calls like this. Usually it's someone drunk who wandered off course, or somebody having a mental health crisis. Disoriented, harmless in the way that just needs a patrol car and a wellness check. I told her to stay inside, keep her doors locked, and that officers were on the way. She said okay. She said she just wanted someone to stay on the phone with her until they arrived. That's normal. People ask for that all the time. I said sure, of course. And I kept her talking while I pulled up the dispatch board to see how far out the nearest unit was. 12 minutes. Maybe less if they hit the lights. For the first minute or two, nothing about the call felt unusual. She described the man in the yard, medium height, dark clothing, and said he hadn't stopped his circling since she first noticed him through the window. I asked if he'd said anything, knocked on anything, tried the door. She said no, just walking. Around and around the same 6 feet of grass, like he was tracing a shape only he could see. Then her voice changed. He's still just walking in circles, she said. But he's not walking right. I asked her what she meant by that. There was a long pause before she answered. Long enough that I checked the call was still connected. When she spoke again, her voice had dropped almost to a whisper. His feet are on the ground, she said. But everything else about him is upside down. I want to be honest with you. In this job, you hear people describe all kinds of things during a panic. And most of it can be explained by adrenaline, bad lighting, a mind trying to make sense of something at 3 in the morning through a window at a distance. I told myself that. I asked her to describe it again, slower, because I needed to understand what I was working with before officers arrived. She said his legs were bent the wrong way at the knee, folding backward instead of forward, and his head was tilted so far back that it was pointing straight down toward the ground behind him, like his whole upper body had been rotated 180 degrees while his feet kept walking normally beneath him. She said it wasn't jerky or mechanical the way you'd expect if it were a trick or a costume. It moved smoothly, like that was simply how it was built to move. I kept my voice level. I told her the police were still on their way, almost there now, and to stay away from the windows. She said she couldn't stop watching it. She said she didn't know why. Then she went quiet in a different way. Not scared quiet, confused quiet. He stopped, she said. He's not walking anymore. Where is he now? I asked. He's just standing there, she said, facing the house. And then, after a pause that felt far too long, she said something that I have not been able to stop thinking about since. He's smiling. I asked her to describe the smile, mostly to keep her talking, to keep her calm, but also because something in the way she said it made the hair on my arm stand up. She said it wasn't a normal smile. It was too wide, stretched further than a human mouth should stretch, and it didn't move, didn't twitch, didn't waver the way a real smile does even when someone's holding still. It just stayed exactly like that, frozen. Aim at her window. I've thought a lot about why that detail unsettled me more than anything else in the call. I think it's because an aggressive thing, a thing that's yelling or charging or breaking down a door, at least behaves the way threats are supposed to behave. But something that just stands still and smiles isn't reacting to you at all. It's already decided something, and it's simply waiting for you to catch up. He's not moving, she said. He's just staring at the window and smiling, and I don't... She stopped mid-sentence. Ma'am? I said, are you still there? I looked away, she said, her voice suddenly very small. Just for a second. I looked at my phone to check if the police had texted an update. And when I looked back up, where is he? I asked. He's on the glass, she said. He's pressed against the window right now. Right in front of me. I asked her how far the window was from where she was standing. She said maybe 8 feet. I asked how long she'd looked away. She said 1 second, maybe 2. There was no way, under any explanation I could offer her, for a man standing in the middle of a yard to cross that distance and press himself against a window in the time it takes to glance at a phone screen. I didn't tell her that. I just kept my voice steady and told her to move away from the window immediately to get to an interior room, to stay on the phone with me. She didn't move. I could hear her breathing change. Faster now. Shallow. Mom, I need you to back away from the window. He's still smiling, she said. He hasn't blinked. I don't think he's blinked once. I checked the dispatch board again. Officers were 4 minutes out. I told her that, hoping it would help. It didn't seem to. Are you alone in the house? I asked her a routine question, the kind we're trained to ask so officers know what to expect walking in. Yes, she said. I'm alone. There was a pause on her end. Then her voice changed again, quieter than before, almost confused. He's shaking his head, she said. Like he's telling me no. Telling you no about what? I asked. He's telling me, she said slowly, that I'm not alone. I asked her what she meant. I asked her to move, to run, to get out of the house entirely if she could. She didn't answer the question. Instead, her breathing changed one more time, sharp and sudden, like she'd turned to look at something else in the room with her. Then there was a sound I still can't fully describe, a kind of low, heavy thud close to the phone, and then nothing. The line was still connected. I could see it on my screen. The call timer still running, but there was no more sound coming through at all. Not breathing, not movement, nothing. Officers arrived 90 seconds later. They found the front door locked from the inside. They found the phone on the living room floor, call still active, still connected to my line. They found the window she'd described, glass intact, no marks, no smudges, nothing to suggest anyone or anything had ever touched it. They never found her. I still have access to the call log from that night. The timer on the recording shows the call lasted 11 minutes and 40 seconds. But there's something in the file that nobody in my department has been able to explain. Something I only noticed weeks later when I went back and listened to it alone, late at night, which in hindsight was a mistake. At the very end of the recording, after her voice stops, after the thud, there are 4 more seconds of audio before the line finally disconnects. In those 4 seconds, very quietly, almost too quiet to notice unless you already know to listen for it, you can hear someone breathing, slow, even, patient, standing, it sounds like, very close to wherever the phone had fallen. In 7 years as a 911 dispatcher, I learned one rule very quickly. If a caller suddenly goes silent, it usually means they've dropped the phone, passed out, or they're already dead. But one night, a woman stopped talking, and something else started answering instead. The call came in a little after 1 in the morning. A woman's voice, barely above a whisper, said someone had broken into her house, and she was hiding. This part of the job I know well. I kept my voice low to match hers, the way we're trained to, and started the usual questions. Are you in a safe location? Is the door locked? Can you tell me your address? She answered everything in a careful whisper, breathing fast but steady, and for the first few minutes, this felt like dozens of calls I'd taken before. Officers were already rolling. I told her they were 6 minutes out. She said okay. She said she was in a closet upstairs, door locked, staying quiet. I kept her talking, the way we're trained to, because a caller who's talking is a caller who's still with you. Then, about 5 minutes in, she stopped answering. At first, I assumed the obvious. Dropped phone. Signal cut out. Maybe she'd been startled into silence by something close by. I said her name. Nothing. I said it again, a little louder. Mom, are you still there? There was a pause and then a voice answered. Yes, it was her voice. Exactly her voice. Same pitch, same slight breathlessness. I felt my shoulders relax for half a second, telling myself she was fine, just quiet, just scared. Are you safe? I asked. Yes. Are you hiding? Yes. Routine questions, routine answers. Nothing wrong yet, but something about the rhythm of it had started to feel slightly off to me, though I couldn't have told you what at the time. I asked her to blink her phone's flashlight if she could hear me but couldn't speak. Standard procedure for callers who might not be able to talk safely. Silence. Then, in that same whisper, in her exact voice, it said, "I don't have eyelids anymore." I remember laughing it off internally for a second, thinking maybe this was a prank call. Maybe a bad connection had garbled her words into something that only sounded wrong. I asked her to repeat what she'd said. She didn't repeat it. She just answered my next question instead. And that's when I noticed it clearly for the first time. There was no pause before she spoke. No breath drawn in first, no hesitation, no stammer, nothing that sounds even slightly human when someone is frightened and whispering in a dark closet at 1 in the morning. The responses were coming instantly, evenly, with a kind of rhythm that felt less like speech and more like something reciting speech. I asked, "What room are you in?" "The room beneath the room," she said. I asked her to clarify. She didn't. I asked if the intruder was still in the house. "Not anymore," she said. For a moment I felt real relief. I told her that was good, that officers were close, that she should stay exactly where she was and stay quiet until they arrived. Then, almost without thinking, I asked the obvious follow-up. "Then where is he?" Silence. 5 seconds. Then 10. I could hear something on the line. Very faint. That might have been breathing, or might have been nothing at all. A kind of static that pulsed instead of hissed. Then the voice, still hers, still perfectly hers, said, "He's learning how to answer phones." I don't fully know how to describe what happened in me at that moment. I've taken calls involving weapons, violence, people dying in real time on the other end of the line, and none of it made my hands shake the way that sentence did. I kept talking. I kept my voice level because that's the job, because panicking helps no one. But every question I asked after that got answered faster than the one before it, until the responses were coming almost on top of my own words. Like whatever was on the other end had stopped waiting for me to finish speaking at all. Officers arrived 4 minutes later. They found the front door locked. No forced entry anywhere. They cleared the house room by room and found it completely empty. Her phone was on the floor of the upstairs bedroom, screen lit. Call still connected, still logged as an active line to 911. I listened to the full recording afterward, twice, because I needed to understand what I'd actually heard. Here's the part that I still can't reconcile in my head no matter how many times I go back to it. On the recording, there's only one voice for the entire 6 minutes. Hers. Every question I ask, every response that follows, all of it registers on playback as the same single voice. Hers, speaking uninterrupted the whole time. There's no second voice anywhere in that file. No shift in tone. No evidence on the recording that anything unusual happened at all. But I was there. I heard it happen in real time, heard the pauses disappear, heard the rhythm change into something that wasn't hers anymore, even though it never stopped sounding exactly like her. Somehow, on the tape none of that exists. She was never found. No trace of forced entry. No evidence anyone else had been in that house. No explanation for how a connected call could run for 6 minutes, with a phone lying untouched on a bedroom floor. Weeks passed. I went back to working night shifts, mostly because the department was short-staffed, and mostly because staying away from the phones felt like giving something a win. I didn't want to give it. Then, one night, a call came in. The screen read, "No caller ID." I answered it the way I answer every call, out of habit, out of training, before I'd even fully registered the number. I hadn't gotten past the first word of 911. "What's your..." when a voice on the other end spoke first, quiet, calm, almost gentle. "I learned," it said. "I answer much better now." Then the line went dead. I checked the call log afterward. There was no record of the call ever connecting at all. My cousin Renee has worked dispatch for 11 years, and in that time, she's handled overdoses, murders, domestic violence calls that still wake her up some nights. She's the kind of person who doesn't rattle easily. I used to tease her that nothing could shock her anymore. I don't tease her about that anymore. It happened on a Thursday shift, a little after midnight. She told me about it 3 weeks later, and even then, telling it, her hands weren't quite steady. The call came in from a woman named Carol, mid-30s, home alone, whispering into the phone from what sounded like a closet or a bathroom. Carol said someone had broken into her house. She said she'd heard the back door open, heard footsteps moving through the kitchen, and had locked herself into the smallest room she could find. Renee has taken 100 calls like this. She stayed calm, kept her voice low and steady to match Carol's, and started the usual questions. "Is the door locked? Can you see anything? Are you somewhere safe?" Carol answered all of it in whispers, breathless but coherent, and for the first few minutes, this was just another break-in call. Officers were already being dispatched. Renee told her they were 4 minutes out. Then Carol said something that made Renee stop typing. "I don't hear footsteps anymore." Renee asked if that meant the intruder had left. "No," Carol whispered. "He's still moving. I can hear it. There aren't footsteps." Renee asked her to explain what she meant. Carol said she could hear something moving through the house. Could hear it bump against furniture. Could hear doors creaking open down the hallway, one after another, methodically, like someone checking every room. But there was no sound of feet on the hardwood floor. No footfall. No weight shifting the old floorboards the way they always shifted when anyone walked through that hallway. Something Carol said she knew well because the house creaked constantly, every single day, under completely normal footsteps. Just not tonight? Renee told me this is the part that still gets her. Not because Carol sounded panicked. Not exactly. She sounded confused in a way that unsettled Renee more than fear would have. Like Carol's mind kept trying to fit what she was hearing into a shape that made sense, and kept failing. Then, through the phone, Renee heard it herself. A door, somewhere in that house, being kicked in with enough force that the sound came through clearly even over a phone line. Wood splintering, a heavy impact against a wall. Carol gasped. Renee asked if she was hurt, if anyone had gotten to her. Carol said no. It wasn't her door, it was another one, down the hall. Renee immediately radioed the responding officers to confirm they'd heard the same thing, expecting them to say they could hear it now from outside the house too. Sirens close, ready to breach. They said they didn't hear anything. No noise from inside. No sign of forced entry from where they were parked out front. Renee told me that's the moment the call stopped feeling like a normal break-in to her. Because dispatchers hear background noise all the time, gunshots, screaming, glass breaking, and it always tracks with what officers find when they arrive. This didn't track. Whatever Carol was hearing inside that house wasn't reaching the outside of it at all. Carol's whispering got faster. She said the sound, whatever was making it, had stopped moving through the hallway and had gone quiet. Renee told her to stay hidden, stay low. Officers were coming through the front door right now. Then Carol went completely silent for almost 10 full seconds. When she spoke again, her voice had dropped so low that Renee had to strain to hear it at all. "It's in the doorway." Renee asked which doorway. Carol didn't answer the question directly. She just kept repeating it, quieter each time, like she was talking more to herself than to Renee at all. "It's in the doorway. It's just standing there. It's not moving. It's just in the doorway." Renee has run through this moment in her head more times than she can count, trying to picture exactly what Carol was seeing. And she told me the thing that gets her isn't any specific detail, because Carol never gave one. No description of a face, no height, no clothing. Just that single sentence, repeated, and somehow that absence of detail was worse than anything specific could have been. Renee's mind filled in the shape on its own, and once it did, it wouldn't let it go. Officers breached the front door 12 seconds later. Renee heard it happen in real time. The front door crashing open, boots on the floor, voices calling out, clearing each room. They found Carol locked in an upstairs bathroom exactly where she said she'd be, unharmed. They checked every room in the house. Every door was intact, nothing splintered, nothing kicked in. The back door Carol said had been opened was locked from the inside, deadbolt engaged. There was no sign that anyone else had been in that house at all. Carol couldn't explain what she'd heard. And honestly, according to Renee, she stopped trying to after that night. She sold the house within 2 months and moved out of state. Renee kept the recording of that call, the way dispatchers sometimes do for cases that never get properly closed. She told me she's listened to it exactly twice since then, and both times, at the exact moment Carol says, "It's in the doorway." There's a sound in the background of the recording that nobody has ever been able to identify. It's not footsteps. Renee still works dispatch. She's handled worse calls since then, on paper anyway. Calls with actual bodies, actual arrests, actual endings. But she told me something a few weeks ago that I haven't been able to shake since. My cousin can't sleep with the bedroom door open anymore.